I'm just a Chinese, so I may not have as much information as you do about what the Chinese government care about Chinese people. But if you are right, Chinese government doesn't care about Chinese people.
The Chinese government doesn't care about its citizens. I love it when people make such statements because it shows you where they are at with processing information. I'm an educator, and we learned that people have different styles of learning. This could be a visual learner, and let's take them slowly. Guys, I've seen this comment many times under so many posts about China. Chinese government doesn't care about its citizens. I don't know why everything is blamed on the Chinese government, but anyway.
Why would Chinese government build all those high-speed railway that covered all throughout China? For whom? For foreigners? For foreigners to take high-speed train in China very, very fast? And not for Chinese people? Okay. Why would the Chinese government push for the Belt and Road Initiative? Just so that foreigners can have better road? Or not for Chinese product to reach other country so that Chinese people benefit? I don't know. I don't think Chinese government is that altruistic to care about foreigners that much. It might care about Chinese people.
Meanwhile, America is in shambles right now. Y'all president of the United States just bought a $250 million ballroom. Mind you, the government is still shut down at this current moment. EBT SNAP funds will be insufficient for the month of November, with the possibility that Medicaid is going to be taken away in January. Can't fund us, the people, EBT. He claimed he loved the structure of the White House and he wasn't going to touch the White House at all, and that the ballroom was going to be near the White House. But they currently have started the wreckage on the east wing side of the White House. This is something that was built back in 1801, something historical that he had destroyed just because he wanted to put a ballroom in the White House to fit up to 900 people, because he can only fit 200 people in that area. This is the person that claimed he was going to make America great again, but he's only making America good enough for the billionaires and the millionaires and keep the rich rich. And keep the poor poor. Donald J. Trump played the fuck out of y'all and y'all fell for the okie doke.
Why does China build everything so fast? Like, how can they do that? Well, guys, it's not luck because everything is planned. China has something called a 5-year plan. So it's basically a 5-year to-do list. So it's more like a long-term strategy that spans over 5 years. And the next plan is being decided right now in Beijing. So this Monday to Thursday, China's top party leaders are gathering, crafting the 15th 5-year plan. So that spans from 2026 to 2030. It's the playbook for what gets built, founded and prioritized for the next 5 years. And it's a gathering of the opinion from experts, from scholars, from politicians, and of course the mass public. To have a clearer idea of how it works, let's compare the two previous 5-year plan, which is the 13th and the 14th. So the 13th 5-year plan from 2016 to 2020 was all about China being the world's factory. That means it's still export-led growth. It has something called Internet Plus, which means upgrading the existing technology, but less about innovation. It's about what they have already got. And still they focus a lot on the GDP target. But then when we turn into the 14th 5-year plan, which is from 2020 to 2025, the key focus was on dual circulation. That means grow the home market within China while staying global. That means more self-dependence. And then they say quality over speed. So it's like they're saying, okay, we're not obsessed with the GDP number anymore. We have something bigger to care about. They made big bets on core technologies like AI, quantum computing, and chips. They shifted from just making things for the world to building up their own technology, their own market first. So quality over speed. So that's the reason why you've seen the EV boom and record solar and wind build-outs and huge chip and AI investment, because it's planning with budgets behind it. And now we're turning to the 5th 5-year plan. It's very likely that push for high quality development again. So it's modernizing the entire industry, deeper reforms, tech self-reliance, while balancing growth with securities. But what are the biggest challenges? Property crisis is still very serious in China, and also we have aging population, the pressure from the United States. So guys, if you run a country like China, what would be in your 5-year plan? Drop your thoughts in the comments.
At Addis Ababa airport, I once saw a giant red banner built by China for the future. A brand new glass terminal stood behind it, sleek, modern, and full of life. Weeks later, in Phnom Penh, I saw a bridge with golden railings that read, "Gift from People's Republic of China." Everywhere I traveled, ports, highways, railways, China's footprint was unmistakable. Some call it generosity. Others call it strategy. The truth lies somewhere in between. Let's be real. It's not charity. It's economics. Africa and Southeast Asia are young, fast-growing, and full of potential. For China, building infrastructure isn't about helping. It's about connecting. Railways, power grids, 5G networks, they don't just move goods. They move influence. The Belt and Road Initiative isn't a slogan. It's a strategy. If you build the roads, you build the relationships. For centuries, China built walls to keep others out. Today, it's building bridges to reach the world. After a century of invasion and isolation, Chinese leaders learned a simple truth. To be strong, you can't stand alone. The West once expanded through colonies. China expands through commerce and construction. It doesn't export ideology. It exports infrastructure. Western analysts call it strategic influence. But in China, it's seen through another word, 共赢. It's win-win. You build for me, I buy from you. You gain stability, I gain trade routes. That's why officials love to say, we build roads, not rules. It's not arrogance. It's belief. Belief that prosperity builds peace faster than politics. In Nairobi, people tell me China builds fast, faster than anyone. In Cambodia, some complain they bring their own workers, but everyone agrees no one else actually gets things done. To them, China isn't a savior. It's a partner that delivers. Where others talk policy, China pours concrete. So why does China invest so much abroad? Because influence in the 21st century isn't about armies. It's about connections. China's not buying loyalty. It's buying longevity. And that, in its own way, is power. If you are curious about what modern China is really like, whether for travel, study, business, or just curiosity, come visit my website at ericonchina.com. You'll find real stories, insights, and ways to connect with me personally. Ciao.
Why in the richest country on earth are people still going to bed hungry? America can build billion-dollar facilities, but they can't seem to figure out a way to make sure Americans stay fed.
Just wanted to give you all an update as I am back from my trip and I am mostly fully recovered. For those of you who don't know the story, I'm going to try to answer a few of the commonly asked questions, but just as a recap. I went to New York City over the weekend. On Friday night, I took my partner to a special birthday dinner at a Michelin star restaurant in Manhattan, and it was a 5-course meal. And on the second course, we were served a squash blossom, and I took a big bite of it, and it was exceptionally bitter and foul tasting. However, I assumed that because I was in a Michelin star restaurant, I just must not have liked what I put in my mouth. And I thought something was wrong, but I immediately convinced myself that it was just my taste buds and not that there was something wrong. But then my partner took a tiny bite and said, absolutely not, this is wrong.
Look, I know he said America first, but you need to understand those people in Argentina, they're dying over there. They need our help. And I think we might even get some free steaks out of the deal, which is a lot more than you could say we ever got out of Ukraine.
ICE officials are now claiming that they cannot follow court orders because they simply don't have enough money to do so after spending millions of dollars on luxury travel for Kristi Noem. Last week, U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis ordered that ICE agents must wear body cameras whenever available and that they must turn them on when engaged in arrests, frisks, and building searches, or when they're being deployed to protests. In response, ICE's Deputy Field Office Director Sean Byers said that ICE couldn't require agents to wear body cameras unless Congress gave them a hell of a lot more money to buy those cameras. This is despite the fact that Congress has already approved $170 billion with a B for immigration and border enforcement, $75 billion of which went directly to ICE, making it the highest funded law enforcement agency ever in the history of our federal government. Even crazier, at the same time that ICE is claiming that they cannot afford to buy these body cameras, they are also buying Kristi Noem not one, but 2 new luxury private jets at a total cost of nearly $200 million. And were ICE to skip buying just one of those new luxury private jets for Kristi, given the fact that she quite literally cannot use both planes at once, they would save enough money to buy at least 860,000 new body cameras for agents. And I want you to take a moment and reflect on the fact that ICE is straight up claiming that they cannot afford to protect Americans' civil and human rights, while also claiming that it is totally reasonable for them to buy Kristi Noem 2 new private jets. Because I don't know how else to take that other than an acknowledgement that American civil rights are less important to them and less valuable to them than their own luxury travel.
The President of the United States of America is now suing the United States of America. Donald Trump is demanding $230 million from the Department of Justice for emotional distress caused during his criminal investigations over the last 4 years. And yes, those $230 million would be coming out of American taxpayers' pockets. But here's the thing. The next step is for the Justice Department to either approve or deny that claim. And one of the 2 people who has the power to approve that claim is Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who is, you guessed it, Donald Trump's lawyer, which means he's on Trump's payroll, which means he could be coming into a pretty generous bonus if Trump just randomly happened to come into a bunch of money. But here's the thing. I really do think Trump could use that money. I mean, the guy's only worth $7 billion. Come on, just give it to him. He's been through a lot.
I love this idea. What I don't like is that when we say make America great again, it means a lot of other things. If you know, you know. What I like to say is America is great already. It is a great country and has great people. You might not feel this way because something is changing and have been changing for a while. And you want to go back to maybe an older or younger or more free version of yourself. Maybe that's what it is.
I'm actually very curious about one thing. The US government and the CIA have been spreading propaganda through their agents in China that democracy and freedom are the most important thing. Money is not important, groceries are not important, and housing is not important either. Without democracy and freedom, all these things are meaningless. As for what democracy and freedom mean, being able to casually insult the leader is freedom, and being able to vote for one of 2 leaders is democracy, even if both leaders are useless. Democracy and freedom are supreme. As long as you have them, people don't need to eat or have houses. Even becoming homeless is happiness. This kind of propaganda has been spread in China for 30 years, and almost all Chinese people have been brainwashed to some extent. I'm curious, is this propaganda only targeted at Chinese people? Or do they also deceive the American people in the same way?
People often say China is a country that invests in its people, not in wars. But have you ever wondered, where does the Chinese government get all that money? There's no property tax, prices are low, yet roads, hospitals, schools, subways are built everywhere. So how can the Chinese government afford all this? And why would capital invest in projects that don't make a profit? The answer is actually very simple. The state-owned enterprises. In China, industries like energy, finance, telecom, transportation, and tobacco are owned by the country, not private capital. They don't need heavy competition, but they make huge profit and very stable. One advantage of this is that all the money earned by those industries belongs to the country. Those profits go straight back to the public into infrastructure, education, healthcare, and welfare. So that's how the government invests in its people instead of relying on private investors. Now, a lot of people may think China is purely communist. That's so wrong. That's another Western media's propaganda, I can tell you. China actually has capitalism. Sectors that do need creativity and innovation, like tech companies, tech industries, are left to private companies. The country supports them with money, talent, and policies. So instead of capital controlling politics, China built a system where the government controlled capital. So China kept the market, but under state guidance. It's just not Western-style capitalism and not pure socialism either. That's why China is called socialism with Chinese characteristics. Chinese President Xi Jinping called this system a proactive government and an efficient market. That's why China's policies can stay independent and focus on people, not capital. So next video, I will try to explain how China prevents corruption while it has so many state-owned enterprises. I'm Kitty Tang. Follow me for more perspectives from the East. I'm your Chinese economic insider. Talk to you later.
There's a pretty large contingent of the American left that doesn't think China is better than the United States. Here are two large cities in both countries. I'll put them up here. They are the exact same distance from each other. Here in the US, your only option is a car, so it takes well over 17 hours, and that's if you don't fucking stop, which you definitely will, so it takes days. You might have looked at this and said, haha, our car trip is shorter for roughly the same distance. This isn't about the car though, this is about the train, which takes 7 hours. Yes, 7 hours to go the same distance that you need 19 to go. They can be there in the same day. You need to stop. You need to swap places with someone and sleep in the car if you want to be there in 24 hours. They don't. Also, it's cheaper. Pay gas, tolls, parking, everything on the way down. And maintenance, let's be honest, it puts you closer to an oil change and needing your brakes done. They just pay the train fare down and back. And here you are, talking about this country being the best ever. We can't move people. We waste 5 to 10% of our lifespans in this fucking country, depending on who you are, depending on where you work, sitting in fucking traffic. In the time you would need to drive from Boston to Philadelphia, these people can cross like half our country. More cheaply, too. They also have this crazy thing called free healthcare, which is one of the many reasons they have a higher life expectancy than us now. To me, there's no greater signifier of how good your country is as to how much time and money you can save your citizens. When you drive the cost of living down on purpose, yeah. In addition to just making it easier to get around, yeah. Of course your fucking country's better than ours. I'll just close by saying, guys, you can't walk around and say you're a socialist and then just hate every existing form of socialism, okay? Every communist/socialist experiment has its flaws. It still beats your glorious free market any day of the week.
Have you noticed that whenever somebody powerful tries to unite the working class against the elites, they end up being unalived? Martin Luther King Jr. was unalived shortly after organizing the Poor People's Campaign. Literally a couple months after that. So tell me that wasn't coincidence. The purpose of it was to demand economic justice for poor people of all races. Then you look at Fred Hampton, the chairman of the Black Panthers. He was working to unite diverse communities through the Rainbow Coalition. What he was saying is that you do not fight capitalism with black capitalism. You fight capitalism with socialism. You don't fight racism with racism. You fight racism with solidarity. These aren't the exact words or in the exact order, but if these people were unalived for uniting the working class, for uniting poor people, then clearly they were a threat. And clearly we need to finish where they left off. We need to dismantle capitalism. There is power in numbers, and there is a lot of us.